Welcome to Brutus Monroe. Annie Collins here. Today we're going to create a very birthday card. Let's go with the products I used. I used the Strawberry Social stamp set. This is a 25-piece set. And this stamp set contains a lot of strawberries and 4 sentiments. It has a small vine here with some strawberries on it. It has some foliage and flowers to coordinate beautifully with our strawberries. Several clusters of strawberries together or a single. Strawberries hanging from a vine. Build your own strawberry, which we'll be using today. It has strawberries, a bowl of strawberries and cream, a cake topped with strawberries. Then you have extras on here as well as looks like chocolate dip or fudge dipping down, and then you have some whipped topping. This stamp set comes with 4 sentiments like thank you, wishing you the very, very best, and etc. We won't be using those today. Today we're going to use the conversation clippings that coordinate with this stamp set, which is the Strawberry Social, and we'll be using have a very, very happy birthday. These can be foiled, so I'm going to foil it using the new green foil. It's called Green Sketch, and this is a collab that Brutus Monroe has done with Thermoweb. And this foil is really pretty. Again, it's called Green Sketch, and it has like several shades of green, and it has like, little hash marks all over. Okay, so we're using that with our foil, with our conversation clippings. So I have a small piece here of the Farmhouse cardstock, and I've colored it using twisted citron and bundle sage on the edges. We're going to use that to create a little crate for our strawberries. We're also going to be bringing Alabaster embossing powder and some Chroma mist in coral. We have our embossing ink to use to emboss some of our images. Alright, so I have a piece of Not Your Mama's cardstock, which I've already trimmed down to 4 by 5 1/4. Raven cardstock, which I've left at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And my card base, which is made from Not Your Mama's cardstock, and that's a A2 card base, which measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So we have all of the components here for our card, and then I have a small piece of Perfect Blend cardstock, which we'll be stamping our images onto. So now let me clear everything off my desk, because I'll be stamping our strawberries for our card on that Perfect Blend. Alright, so let's get started. First, we're going to go ahead and stamp and emboss our swirl vine with the mini strawberries next to it. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I have my stamping platform here. I'm going to get my Not Your Mama's cardstock on here, and then I'm going to see this little vine here with this, has the swirly vine, has little mini strawberries and little flowers all in this one image, and I'm going to just go creating almost like a C shape. So I start at the top, go along the sides, and then along the bottom. So I'm just going to emboss this here with Alabaster embossing powder. So I'm going to use some anti-static powder. I'm trying to get my anti-static powder to come out of the dispenser, so give me a moment. Once we use the anti-static powder on our card panel here, we'll get started. Alright, so now I went ahead and put it all over just in case. So I'm going to line up my stamp, and then I'm going to use my embossing ink, and I'm going to stamp my image across the top. Then I'll wipe my stamp really quickly, because I'm going to move it now to go downward. So I give it a quick clean, and then I'll adjust it, and then I'll stamp it once again onto our panel. And then I just go a little bit further across on the bottom. On the top I left it light because that's where my sentiment will be up there, and I don't want it to be too heavy up on the top. Alright, so giving it again another quick wipe, and then I'm going to go across the bottom. Now I wipe it clean. My stamp, my cloth has a little bit of squeaky clean stamp cleaner on it. I'm sorry about that. I just went blank there. So it's just damp enough just to get any of the excess embossing ink off, so I don't have it all overlapping on each other. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and stamp my last little one here, and excuse my hair getting in there. I had to keep adjusting myself to make sure I got in there properly. Alright, so now that's all stamped. I know you can't see anything because it's clear ink, and I'm dumping white embossing powder onto a white panel, but you'll notice it here in a moment. Alright, so I get this all on, shake off the excess, and you can kind of see it, but not that much. Once I heat set it, you'll see it better because it'll be shiny. Alright, so I'm going to put back any of my excess powder, and then I'll close that and get my heat tool out. Once I have it, I'll heat set this, and I like to heat from front and then to the back, and vice versa. That way, that minimizes the warping that we have on our panel. Although this is thick cardstock, so we don't have that much warping, but either way, I do this regardless if it's thick or thin cardstock. Alright, so you know your embossing powder is set when it goes from a matte to a nice and shiny, and it's no longer grainy. So then once that's done, we're going to move to adding some color to this panel. I'm going to give this a last little bit right here. That little corner has a little bit more there. Okay, so now our panel should be all set. And you can kind of see it there. You can kind of pick up a little bit of that white shine. So I'm going to bring in my splat box, which I throw an extra paper towel in there. I'll use a paper towel to help absorb some of the excess ink. And it also, if there's too much moisture on there, it helps a bit. Alright, so I'm using our Chroma mist in coral, and I'm just going to start spraying our panel. Now you can see the stamped images, that stamped and embossed image pop up. I'm going to set this to the side to dry. While that's drying, we're going to proceed with the rest of the stuff for our card. We're going to trim the sentiment out. I'm going to use a die from my stash. You don't need to use a die to trim these. You could just use your paper trimmer and trim them down. They're perfectly spaced. I just use this because it's easier for me to make sure it's all lined up correctly. And I run that through my die cutting machine. And now I'm going to add the foil to this. So I'm going to put my little sentiment in this carrier sheet. This is how I'm going to run this through my laminator. I add the foil on top, produce a design facing you, and dull side facing the item you wish to foil. I run this through my laminator through the hot setting. My laminator does cold lamination and hot lamination, so I'm using the hot setting. I'll run this through, and then I like to run it through twice. It's not necessary, but it's my personal preference. Once this goes through, we can peel off the foil, and you'll be left with a beautifully foiled sentiment. Now I'm going to keep that extra foil that's left over because I can still use that for another project. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that it's lovely foiled. Now we're going to move on to, and I'll set that aside, and we'll move on to stamping our images. We're going to stamp 2 strawberries, 2 of the bigger flowers or the solo flowers, and 2 of the floral and leaf clusters. We're doing this because I need some fillers. My main thing are the strawberries, but I want some fillers to add. So I'm going to stamp our strawberry, and I'm using Raven Detail ink to stamp our images. So I stamped the strawberry outline, and I'm going to add the little blackberries. The little seeds, I should say, not blackberries, the little seeds come separate. You have 2 different designs of them. You can add both like I did, or just one. They just add a nice little highlight to your strawberries. And then I'll add the little strawberry tops. And I'm using the same one, excuse my head, I'm sorry about that. I'm using the same stamp, but I just turned it so you have a different, one's face with the little leaf standing up and one with it down. Alright, so now I'm just showing you that I pulled out the little floral and the little floral with the leaves. Now I will color on screen one of each of these just so you can see it. I didn't want to color all of them on screen. First of all, I am, you know, I would say intermediate, maybe. That's a big maybe. Colorist is not, and I'm getting better as years go by, but I am no professional. Just so everyone knows, that's my full disclaimer. Okay, for the berries, I'll read off the colors I used, but I will have them linked in, well, I will add them to the description below, not linked. For our strawberries, I used R22, R24, and R39. For our little flowers, I used C1, C2, and Y02. For our leaves, I used YG41, G02, and G05. So, like I said, I will have them in the description box in case you're interested in what colors I did use. So I'm using the lightest color first on our strawberry, and then I move on to the darkest, so I use R22, and then I move to R39, and then I blend all that together with R24. And this is how I find it works out the best for me. It gives you a nice dimension for your strawberry. You keep blending it and it blends out beautifully. Alright, so then we're going to go ahead and add our last color by blending that in. And at first you're thinking it's not blending, but it will. Just have to add it a little bit and then smooth it out, and there it goes. And as it dries, it looks really nice. Okay, so there's one strawberry done. We're going to add color our leaves. So get that done. I start out with the lightest color, then I'll move in that a bit darker color. And I color the center and then the down leaves, and keep the upper leaves as light as possible. Then we'll move on to our cute little flowers once I finish my little leaves here. The flowers, I wanted to keep them white because the flowers on strawberry vines are white. So to keep that, I just added a little C1 and C2. C2 closest to the center, and then a little C1 mostly by where the little veins are in the petals. And then for our center, I used the Y02. I didn't want to go really dark. So what's happening here is that my C2 actually dried up. It was like, just wasn't coming out. So I went through my Spectrum Noirs and I grabbed the, I think it's IG2, and used that. It's comparable, they're pretty comparable to each other. So I used that instead. I realized I need to refill my markers. Alright, so now I do the last little flower with the same colors, and then my last little leaves on here. So we're going to do the YG. Look at my colors here. My YG41, and then the G02, and then I put in a little bit of G05. I'm not sure if I do that on screen or off screen because I realize it needs a little more depth. Okay, so here's one of each, and I will color the rest of these off screen and fussy cut them. They are coordinating dies for the set. Unfortunately, I do not have them, but you can purchase them over at the Brutus Monroe shop. So here are our two large strawberries. One of them has foam adhesive on the back. The little florals, single florals have foam adhesive, and so do the little floral and leaf combo. Here's our panel all dry. It's a nice pale pink, which picks up on the pinks that are in the flowers, in the strawberries. And I'm going to adhere this panel that I have the embossing on onto the Raven cardstock. We're using some Barely Art glue. And I've cut this, like I said, a 1/4 inch smaller, so you have a nice black border all the way around. And this also emphasizes the black in the strawberries. So you get the same color kind of in the background of the dark seeds, the reddish tones from the berries, and then from the white we pick up on the white from the flowers as well. kind of keep it matchy-matchy, but not quite matchy-matchy. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere our panel down to my card base. So now I'm going to put in a little strip of our Farmhouse cardstock. And this is textured cardstock. It gives you a wood grain texture. And it comes in 8.5 by 11, I believe, sheets. There. So I just cut a little strip down. Alright, so now that I adhered that down, I'm going to go ahead and create my little cluster down here. So I put one strawberry, I adhere directly to my card here. And then the rest of these images have foam adhesive behind them. So I have one little floral cluster to the left and to the right of our strawberry. And then I'm going to put one of these florals onto the top. I'll put our little strawberry here, the one that has foam adhesive right on top. And I kind of put it in a slight slant. And then I'll put the other little floral towards the bottom, next to the strawberries. And for our finishing touch, I'm going to bring in some flat back gems. So here's our sentiment. I have a little foam strip on the back of that, and I'm going to adhere that towards the top. Now, that's why I didn't put too much of the embossed strawberries towards the top, because I knew my sentiment would go up there. So now our our sentiment is white with that green, so we have some of that green that's collected throughout. Alright, so now I'm bringing in our flat back gems. I have two up by the sentiment. I have a green and a red one, and then I have a cluster of 3 towards the bottom left and one near the right by the strawberries. So we have all of our gems on here, and I'm using, of course, barely art glue to adhere our gems. Get a little bit more of adhesive there, get that to stick. And our card is complete. It was actually pretty simple and fun to do. Nothing took really a long time. It all went by pretty quickly. Just you have to wait for the chroma mist to dry, and you can heat set that to get it to go. Alright, so let's go over what we use. We use our Thermoweb and Brutus Monroe Deco Foil. We use the Strawberry Social Stamp Set, the Strawberry Social Conversation Clippings, Chroma Mist and Coral, Alabaster Embossing Powder, Embossing Ink, and Raven Detail Ink to create our card today, and a little piece of our Farmhouse cardstock. But like always, I'll have everything listed for you and linked in the description box below. I would like to thank you for being here, and I hope you found some inspiration.